Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second of our sustainability mobility sessions of the conference today. This is part two of the power of sustainability. So this morning we had the power of sustainability and we focused on freight for part one, and this afternoon we're going to be focusing on passenger and how to attract passengers with the power of sustainability. So I'm going to pass over now to our moderator for the session. This is Lorenzo Casolo, who is Associate Director at Ricardo Energy and Environment.
Can you see him and also hear
And
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Great.
Okay. Yes, so Ricardo is a consultancy that is global and a multidisciplinary organization that provides senior technical advice to European institutions, governments and companies internationally on transport and infrastructure policy in relation to environmental and digital challenges. So welcome, Lorenzo, and you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. It's very nice to be here, nice to be back and to chair this session today. I'm speaking from the Netherlands, although it might not be relevant in the digital context of the conference. It is very relevant because the Netherlands is one of the countries with the highest passenger rail utilization and network density in Europe. But much like everywhere else, we have seen a sharp decline in the last few months in the way that passengers travel, and especially by rail and public transport. So the challenge of using sustainability as a key guiding tool for reattracting passengers back to the railways is very real where I am today as well. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed things for most operators, but it also has heightened the challenge of sustainability, and not just for railways, for everyone in the industry. As you say, at Ricardo, we work across a range of infrastructure and transport and energy projects. And wherever there is a sustainability drive, the investment and the innovation has not decreased despite the pandemic. If anything, it has increased. So hopefully that will be the same for railways going forward. Today we have a very good set of panelists who will present and discuss with us today. And I'm pleased to introduce them.
But we can't
hear you. That's the problem.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We see the screen, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you fine, Lorenzo.
Okay, I will continue to present for now. So I was going to take you through our panelists for today. I'll do that briefly. So Lucy already introduced the session. Lucy Anderton is the head of sustainability at UIC, l'Union Internationale des Chemins de Fer, as they call themselves down in Paris. And you come from Network Rail, is that right, Lucy? So you've got British experience, now seconded at UIC in Paris. And you are head of sustainability, working on environmental impact assessments and rail infrastructure projects more widely to drive the low carbon transition. So we also have Kurt Bauer joining us from the Austrian Federal Railways. Kurt, I hope your technological issues are solved and you can be fully with us for the session. So Kurt is head of high speed and long distance services at OBB. We also have Bruce Kemp, calling from Dubai, and he's Global Director of Safety and Regulatory Compliance at Virgin Hyperloop. It's interesting that your title involves global health, safety, quality, and environment, and we'll speak about the links between all of those in the session today. And last but not least, we have Johannes Emmelheins, your CEO of Siemens Mobility Customer Services. But you have a long career at Siemens Rail before your current title. So it will also be interesting to see how we can work on, as a system, imagine the railway system as a whole, attracting customers back using the lever of sustainability, as we said. Before starting with presentations today, I would just like to add one note, which is that 2021 is the European Year of Railway. We've had the approval of the Green Deal and several initiatives on ticketing, on emissions, on market share that will really shape European policy going forward. So business models need to be changed, but policy is there to support the change in business models. And the way we reemerge from the pandemic, and the railway sector in particular, will be driven by this policy drive to be greener, to be more sustainable, and hopefully we can use our strong sustainability credentials to re-attract passengers. And remembering always that passengers are citizens, and that citizens demand safety, comfort, but more and more also good environmental performance. So on this note, I think it's time to hear from our speakers. And for today, I will start with a presentation by Kurt. So as I said, head of high-speed and long-distance services, Kurt Bauer at ÖBB. The floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thanks for the response. So thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very sorry that we have some technical issues. For whatever reasons, my laptop does not allow this software, no matter what we do, even if the system administrators go ahead, I'm simply not able to dial in properly. So I would ask somebody to move on the slides. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, then please go to the first slide. Thank you very much. Yeah, what I want to speak about a little bit is what ÖBB actually does in the matter of environmentally friendly transport. And the fight against climate change is definitely one of the greatest challenges of our time. One of the key questions is, how do we achieve the climate revolution in the area of transport? Because we all know that transport is one of the biggest problems in the fight of climate change. Of course, the railway companies have to do their part to achieve the climate targets. ÖBB, which is the Austrian Federal Railways here in Europe, is doing so with an ambitious climate protection strategy. We want to and will significantly increase capacity with new technologies in the area of controlling and operational management, as well as with more powerful vehicles. And the rapid electrification of further railway lines, the increased use of renewable energy, the increase in energy efficiency, and the use of alternative propulsion technologies will additionally make transport by rail and bus more attractive. Every year, ÖBB saves the climate 1.1 million tons of CO2 through transporting goods by rail and 2.4 million tons of CO2 through transporting passengers by rail. In total, that's 3.5 million tons of CO2. A forest the size of Vorarlberg, which is one county in Austria, would need to be planted to capture this amount. So that's a significant contribution we have. We want to electrify our network by 2035, which would then mean that basically all major networks are electrified. And where we do not have the possibility to electrify lines, we invest in new vehicle technology in order to switch to green power like electric propulsion. One thing which I would like to mention, and please go on the next slide, where you can see our electrification challenges. And I would like to mention one thing at that stage. We in Austria are in the very lucky position that historically we started producing our own electric power by water power plants after World War I, when Austria actually had no access to coal, which meant that importing coal was incredibly expensive, and we started to build our own electric power plants. At that point of time, this was, of course, a disadvantage because of the heavy investment. However, today we are really lucky to have been in this situation and having a lot of mountains where you can use power out of water very, very efficiently. And we produce basically all our electric energy on our own, which means we already, without even having to buy green electricity somewhere else on the market, operate with 100% green electric energy. Let's go to the next slide, please, where we can speak a little bit about the different rolling stock types we can find. The targets we have been set are very high. By 2030, ÖBB wants to be completely CO2 neutral in the transport sector. By then, amongst other measures, the use of diesel should have cased completely as a drive type. And around 90% of passenger transport services are already operated with electric traction. Around 3/4 of the entire ÖBB network are already electrified. The figure should be 85% in 2030. You can see here some prototypes of trains which we currently test together with the industry in order to operate on those lines where electrification is either technically not possible or simply economically not feasible. ÖBB is going down several tracks, so to speak, and wants to spend the next few years testing out the technologies which have the greatest potential for specific applications in the rail transport. Above all, two technologies are in the race. One on the hand, battery trains, on the other hand, hydrogen trains, which draw their energy from fuel cells. Let's go to the next slide, please. As the transport need is growing also in Austria, we keep on building electric power plants with renewable energy. You can see here a water power plant. However, we also invest a lot in solar cells as well as in wind energy in order to stay 100% green. And let's go to the next slide, the best or the most greenest energy is the energy which has not been used. So what above all we really try to do is to reduce the consumption of energy. Energy efficiency, I think, is the word we should speak about. In the first major energy efficiency program in 2011, 185 gigawatt hours have been saved compared to in 2016 compared to 2011. Since 2017, a group-wide working group has been regularly taking care of further energy efficiency measures. The goal, a further 100 gigawatt hours of energy should be saved by 2024. I think that's really very important if we speak about energy and sustainability. Simply don't use less energy. Next slide, please. And now we come to the issue about how we convince people to use the rail. What I'm totally convinced is that greenwashing is not working in the long run. So if you're not really committed and you cannot really show results, greenwashing might work in the short run, but will definitely not work in the long run. And we see that the Austrians are already very climate sensitive, and 70% of the Austrians responded that they would use rail in order to protect climate, to protect the climate and fight climate change. So the first lesson I want to give is, if the society is aware of the problems of climate change, I'm totally convinced that if rail is not only greenwashing, but has really something to offer, people can be convinced to change their behavior and change to a more green mode of transport. Let's go to the next page, please. The last slide. Yes, thank you very much. As maybe some of you know, our objective as ÖBB is also to expand a European-wide night jet or night train network. And we continuously speak with our clients, and actually a huge number of passengers, 30%, say they use the night jet mainly because of its environmental friendliness. So our challenge as railways is, I think, offering a product to the client which is handy to use, which fits their needs, like linking important cities across Europe. And if this offer is established, then there is no doubt that people will use those services and will appreciate those services because they are already aware of the friendliness of the rail transport. And I think the challenge now, and this is my closing works, is how to bridge the time between COVID is really over and out of our brains, because in the long run, I'm totally sure climate change will again be the major topic which we all will be discussing about. However, in the next 1, 2, 3 years, I'm sure the private safety, like not being with too many other people in a train, will be a challenging time for railways. In the long run, we will win back the passengers, I'm convinced, and climate change will again be the first topic. However, bridging now the next 2 to 3 years will be the big challenge, and I'm happy to discuss this then in our group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. Very inspiring presentation and impressive results from your survey. We'll come back to that in the panel discussion. I'd like to hand over to Bruce Kemp now from Virgin Hyperloop. So, Bruce, will you be as fast as being carbon neutral as you are at carrying stuff around?
Let's see how we go. Thanks, Lorenzo, and thanks, Kurt, for the lead up to my segue on Hyperloop. So I'm here to talk to you today about the sustainability and relevance to rail, but also one option and one solution that can work very well, and that is Hyperloop. Next slide, please. So today I'm speaking to you as a member of obviously the Hyperloop community with an extensive rail background. I've had experience obviously working for RATP Dev, SBS Transit in Singapore, Serco, and MTR Corporation. So I'm speaking to you as a rail industry professional as well. If we take a look back, everything we talk about when it comes to transportation has been transformational. Take for example, the railroad. Not just improving mobility, it was literally responsible for the Industrial Revolution, something that touched everyone's lives and continues to do so 200 years later, and that is phenomenal. Next slide, please. So similar transportations happen with every new mode of transportation. So there's one industry that's consistently ushered in new ecosystems and products that's changed people's lives, and it is transportation. In short, mobility creates opportunities. Over and over again, new modes of transportation that move society forward. When a train, a plane, and a car were invented, people obviously were outlandish and had big dreams and thoughts. That hasn't changed. And over again, the need for new modes of transports have prevailed, and those risks have obviously paid off. Next slide, please. So from my perspective, whilst these modes are not going away anytime soon, we have to take the opportunity to recognise that we are dealing with technologies that are now 100 years old. We must also recognise that they are now suffering from some limitations. We've also seen so much progress made in the digital space, something that is only going to assist sustainability solutions going forward. But we also have yet to see something that is truly groundbreaking over the past 100 years. Next slide, please. The fundamental statement here is obviously we are confronting 21st century problems with 20th century solutions. So how do we take that forward? I guess for me, we're not solving the problems of today with technology built a long time ago, but there are many categories besides transportation that could actually say the same thing or survive for as long as transportation has without evolving. And that's where Hyperloop obviously comes in. The next slide, please. People are demanding, obviously, that transportation addresses these needs as well as meeting the needs for ongoing sustainability targets, particularly here in Europe. Obviously, from my perspective, we're continuing to face the existential global climate crisis, as often it's referred to as, by trying to come up with small band-aids to fit significant problems. But again, we have to take bold leaps forward. We have to be bold in our thinking, we have to be bold in our innovation, and we have to be bold in our creativity. Next slide, please. So let me talk to you just for a few moments about Hyperloop. We have a fully enclosed environment segregated from the outside world. We've eliminated some of the inherent risks that existed previously in the railway industry. Level crossings, pedestrian crossings, moving switches have all been largely removed from a Hyperloop system. Speed and direct destination aspects like a plane. For me, it's really important that we have systems that are direct to destination, that will not stop. You will travel from origin to destination with no intermediary stops. It's I guess, like a plane in a tube working on rails. You know, you've got a combination of all technologies there working together. It's an on-demand system like a metro with no direct emissions. So we have a 100% electric system with magnetic levitation and obviously an autonomous vehicle control platform. And the ability to move masses like a train. A potential Hyperloop system from point A to point B can carry anywhere in the vicinity of 50,000 passengers per hour per direction, given its speed, its reliability, its efficiency. These systems are being built and created right now. Next slide, please. So let's take a quick look at what Hyperloop actually is. We take a tube, we then create a low pressure environment. At atmosphere, it's about 1 bar. So it's about the equivalent of flying in an aircraft at around 200,000 feet. We have a passenger or cargo vehicle, a pod, which can carry either cargo or passengers. In our case, up to 28 passengers on the Virgin Hyperloop system. We have electromagnetic propulsion and an active magnetic levitation system for its power, so 100% sustainable, and an autonomous control platform. We can operate the system obviously in our 3 modes: normal, degraded, and emergency scenarios, with very little human intervention. So we have a near vacuum environment travelling at speeds of up to 1,080 kilometres an hour with no direct emissions, obviously saving a considerable amount of CO2. Next slide, please. Take one example, and this one of our key projects between Mumbai and Pune in the state of Maharashtra in India. Implementing a Hyperloop system on this current journey, where a car would take you somewhere between 3 to 5 hours to drive, adopting Hyperloop technology where that journey can take just 25 minutes, where Pune, some distance away, can potentially become a suburb of Mumbai, and vice versa, where people can no longer have to wait for hours and hours to travel that journey. They can do that in minutes, is extraordinary. We can carry 150 million passengers a year while saving 300 million pounds of greenhouse gas emissions, 18 million direct and indirect jobs, and obviously the socio-economic benefits that go with that, with the largest private infrastructure investment in the state's history. That is what we face. But ultimately here, look at that sustainability, 300 million pounds of greenhouse gas emissions out of the atmosphere. What an extraordinary story that would be. And this obviously is being replicated on other solutions right across the world. Next slide, please. So from my perspective, we are obviously looking into the future. The opportunity is with us. The opportunities are endless. It's exciting, but what we're trying to accomplish here is not easy. It's not building the next app or creating a cool filter on your phone. We believe what we're doing is really, really important. We believe that what matters to our future, for our children and our grandchildren. We don't want to build the same thing. We want to evolve. We want the world to be better than the way in which we found it. We started in a garage 6 years ago, and we've shown the world that we can break barriers. And we continue to tell our story by demonstrating the performance and the systems of Hyperloop. In November last year, we took the bold steps of having our first successful passenger operation in a Hyperloop system. That system, obviously, done like you would expect any other transportation system, under the guise of an independent safety assessor. Certifa was our company that supported us to do that. But then proving to the world the fundamental question, is it safe? Yes, it is. And going back to the original statement Lorenzo made earlier, demonstrating safety, comfort, environmental sustainability and performance is at the heart of what we're trying to achieve here at Virgin Hyperloop, and the Hyperloop industry working together as a whole to achieve that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Bruce, for your presentation and for taking us on a second small journey. We're all grounded. Recently, we're not traveling too much, but today we've already been between Vienna and Salzburg, between Pune and Mumbai. So it's refreshing to see sustainable projects taking off across the globe. And I would like to transition towards more interactive section of our session. So a quick reminder that we have an open Q&A. So anyone who is listening to this, wherever you are, please send your questions through, and then the artist team is working on sifting this to us so that we can read them out to our speakers in the next few minutes. And I also will launch a poll, so get ready to vote in the next 5 to 10 minutes. As soon as the poll is ready, it will appear on the screen. This is to make up for the lack of personal contact and physical presence, but hopefully it ensures interactive session at the same time. It's time now to introduce again Johannes Emmerheinz for a couple of slides that will take us through a different perspective of sustainability. And in introducing you and your work, Johannes, I was reminded of some of the analysis we have done at Ricardo on the life cycle assessments of trains and of railway systems. And we get more and more requests to do this type of work to show sustainability all around. And emissions, of course, as both of the previous speakers have highlighted, are important, but also embedded emissions and materials. So over to you to highlight this aspect of sustainability.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. So I would really like to put a spotlight on the topic, what can we do now and immediately? So it's, of course, fine to think about the future and invest in the future in new technology, but also sustainability means achieve more with less. What do I mean by more with less? We haven't given infrastructure, we have normal rolling stock fleets, and we, of course, the most sustainable, most energy saving, most responsible transport of which is existing right now. So if we use our system more, if we use what we have already in place in a more and a better efficient way, we really can already immediately create an impact to sustainability. So if you have a higher availability of your system, it's not only attracting more passengers because they can really reliable and functional move from one place to the other place without any sitting in traffic jams and whatever. So functionality, reliability, availability drives passenger and also the uses of energies and all the resources which you need. If you do your maintenance more efficient and you really take care about the processes, the digitalization and all the know-how, you can increase significantly the energy footprint of a maintenance operation already today. And if you use your assets, be it rail infrastructure, rolling stock, stations, or what all is needed for rail transportation in a much more efficient way, you can then also extend the lifetime of the system, and you can use the resources much smarter and much more sustainable. And really, what do I mean with less, right? So if you go, for example, and have 100% availability, no breakage anymore because you are using state-of-the-art predictive and condition-based maintenance. So every system is up and running. No trains are stopped or no trains are delayed or even any kind of service are cancelled due to infrastructure or trains. You really can use additional capacity. You can set free spare trains, which were just being bought and stored in the case of. So there's a huge difference if you really use all the spare capacity in a system. If you think about really predicting your operation, predicting your maintenance activities and everything what is needed to run the operation, you can really change the way how you have to sustain the operation right now and have to deal with the operation right now. You can do much more less maintenance operations. You can do much more maintenance in a way that you just do things which are needed at this point of time. And the effect is really that you use less material, and less people, less hours. And again, this contributes heavily to the environmental footprint. And as I said before, if you really can push out the lifetime of the asset, you don't create so much waste, you don't have the necessity to build up new systems, use new trains, and so on. Huge impact again. So summing it somehow up, using what you have, using it in a smart way, predicting the way forward gives you additional capacity, less energies, less material consumption, less work to do, and a much higher lifetime. How really can this contribute very, very pragmatical to a transportation system? You can see on the next slide. We control the first ring in Moscow, and we have moved now, since we started this operation, hundreds of cars out of the street because people are using now this circle. And if you can't really count the amount of cars which are not driving anymore in Moscow because people don't like to sit in traffic jams, they like to get punctual to their meetings and to their destinations, it accounts for something like 50,000 tons of CO2 reduction yearly right now, and it's increasing year by year. And we run this now with any kind of spare capacity anymore. And it's a regional train which runs more or less in a metro operation and really has made big difference to the traffic in Moscow. So availability, 100% availability. You can count on transportation. You can count on rail transportation because it's there and uses the tracks and the trains in the most efficient way, really makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Johannes. Another insightful presentation, putting yet another angle of sustainability to our discussion. And thank you for taking us to Russia after Austria and India. I would like to launch our poll for this session to give you all a chance to participate. So the poll brings together the different aspects of sustainability that we've heard about. And we're asking you, what do you think among the following is the best example of the rail sector's sustainability? We have A, the mode of transport with the highest rate of electrification, B, a very safe, accessible for all mode of transport, C, the least impactful mode of travel on climate and air pollution, and D, the longest life cycle, resulting in lower resource consumption than other modes, just like Johannes was highlighting in his presentation. So feel free to take your time and submit your answer, and we'll come back to this poll at the end of our Q&A and panel discussion. Now, let's pick on these topics. Perhaps start with Lucy, who I see in the bottom left of my screen. Which of those would your answer be? Or to rephrase, from your privileged position at UIC, seeing a lot of examples across the world, where do you think sustainability is being driven the most by rail operators and infrastructure managers?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually, I think what's fabulous about rail, and of course it's fabulous, and I would say that, but is that it's sustainable in so many different ways. So I would be I would really struggle to not pick one of to not pick them all, because they're all so integral about really showing off what rail is and how important it is as part of sustainable mobility system. For me, it's the backbone. It's the backbone of a whole system, and that's what's kind of the most important part of it, really, isn't it? Is how it can connect to other modes, including new shared mobility, active mobility, and really transform the whole system, so that it can really green the whole system and actually green whole cities and whole communities that it serves. So it's actually sort of that kind of backbone and that interconnected, which I think is like the really big part of the important part of what rail does. But I think we're probably missing a trick and really making clear to our passengers, and more importantly our potential passengers, the actual sustainability credentials of rail. When our passengers or general public think about rail or use rail, do they really feel and see and know that they're making a sustainability choice, making a really sustainable travel choice? I think we probably could make passengers feel it more when they go into the stations, when they travel on their trains, when they buy their tickets. Do they know all about the fantastic effects that the choice that they've just made is having?
Yeah, building on this point, is anyone else has any experience in perhaps it is back to Austria, where we saw a lot of climate activism in the way people choose to travel. What works in this sense? What kind of information and what kind of data works best when communicating to customers? There may be a connection problem with Austria right now. There probably is. I don't know if anybody else would like to pick up on that.
I'm sorry, was this question targeted to me?
Ah, you're there. Hi. Yes, if possible.
Hi.
It's
yes,
really
please repeat
about the surveys. Yeah.
Please repeat the question. I can unfortunately not see anything, but I can hear you.
Kurt, we can hear you very well, so I'm sure even the audience will be able to hear you. I was building on Lucy's point that we need to be better as an industry at communicating sustainability credentials to customers, and I was very impressed with the data that you showed from Austria, showing how high the level of climate activism was by passengers when choosing to travel by rail. So I wonder if you have any experience and suggestions for everybody else on communicating those sustainability credentials.
Yeah, I mean, we have different ways to communicate. One thing is really, for example, the ÖBB infrastructure has won again the prize for being the most sustainable infrastructure manager among 50 infrastructure managers which have been tested or which have been assessed. So it's again, greenwashing alone does not help. Show what you're really doing, show what difference you make, and then of course also use it in advertising, but also in things like in public affairs. For example, what we do, we print on each ticket the CO2 savings the person has achieved in comparison to if he would have used the car. So be precise and clear, and I think that's the answer to the question in a way.
Yeah, of course. Lucy.
Yeah, and in fact, the at UIC we have this really great tool called Eco Passenger, which I don't know if any of you have seen it. And in fact, I'll put a link in the chat for all the public to see. And that's one of the tools where you can calculate the carbon footprint as well as other environmental factors of your travel choice, and it compares to other modes in there as well. So it's the data's there, and I think it's just sort of really making the most of it, and so that passengers can really feel it and see it when they're making those choices. I've also been working on a project called SDG Rail Index. So we're working on a project where all our members of the UIC can record their contribution to the SDGs, and then we'll bring a sort of benchmarking and scoring system so that you can, again, as Kurt was saying, show how well you're doing and can really brag about how you're being a leader in the industry when it comes to contributing to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that's one of the sort of tools that we're helping our members with, to sort of really be able to sell and show off about what they're doing across the whole range of different sustainability credentials, actually.
Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, both examples, I think, are part of the narrative that needs to be built and needs to be explored a bit more, and how we communicate those credentials, but also how we involve the industry in producing new and innovative ways of communicating. I think this links to a discussion on the role of digitalization. I mean, there are separate panels throughout the program on these 2 days of conference on digitalization, but there is a link, a strong link between the digital and the sustainability transition. And I wonder if anyone in the panel wants to comment on those synergies, because Johannes Hemmelheinz's presentation was already quite clear that digitalization can be a huge tool to drive sustainability improvements in asset management. What else is out there that you'd like to bring to the panel?
Yeah, and it's not only the maintenance area, right? So for me, one way to communicate is having passengers communicating to other passengers how sustainability, convenience, safety, reliability all comes together. And to drive this digitalization using cell phone technology, mobile apps is really something which I think makes a difference going forward, because it's not only just saying you have the information how much CO2 you saved, also saying, okay, for me, it's also convenient, right? Because there is no contradiction in rail between convenience, safe, reliable, and sustainable. And I think this is the important message which needs to get across. Yeah, you can be safer in a car, as in a car. You can also be more convenient because you can use your cell phone, you can read a book, whatever. And also you can make your journey much more reliable. And if we really then take the cell phone as a navigator, then you can also overcome situations that are platforms crowded or trains are crowded or whatever. And there is so much available if you travel around the world to major urban cities or transportation systems. You can see there's a lot of solutions around the world already existing, most of them based now on modern technology and digitalization. And I believe that we as an industry just need to copy and paste more of the solutions. We have a strong tendency that in different states, in different cities, in different countries, with different operators, there's a lot of activities going on that people try to reinvent the wheel again and again. And digitalization has also the ability to scale and implement much faster. So take what worked in one city, take it to the other city, take what worked in one country, use it and apply it in a digital app to your customers as well in this country, really can make a difference and can create a lot of customer comfort and speed up the implementation for sustainability.
Perhaps this is one of the ways in which we can do that, by sitting here today and yesterday and share experiences across different countries and places. And on digitalization, perhaps, Bruce, can I pick on you to see how that integrates with your visionary presentation that you've given us earlier?
Yeah, thanks, and great discussion. And Johannes, you covered on all the salient points. Safety, reliability, comfort, which is exactly everything that we are taking into consideration. So, rail has been a great lesson learned for building a Hyperloop system, because we take everything we can improve and then put it into a new system in a new dimension. So, we're looking at a completely autonomous system, so that the customer touch points, there is really no interaction with human beings. It's all technology based. So, you will book your journey using your smartphone. You will turn up at a Hyperloop station, which we often call a portal, and you will board a vehicle and you will take 25 minutes to arrive at your destination. What we're trying to do is shift the mindset from on-time departure to on-time arrival. It's a new notion for people to get used to, because it avoids the overcrowding. Now we're looking forward in what does a socially distant world look like in the future. So we don't want overcrowded platforms. We don't want overcrowded vehicles. We want to sort of spread people out as best we can over long periods of time. So the peak hours and the intra-peak periods of the past, we'd like to try and, work to eliminate some of those challenges. But it does revolve around a digital revolution, particularly in our technology. Our technology is completely autonomous. The vehicle communication systems, there is no wayside signalling equipment. as traditional to rail. The technology has been taken from the wayside and put on the vehicle. And that's what we're developing right now in using LiDAR technology and all the available tools which are out there at the moment to mitigate some of the risks that previously existed and do much more. Every aspect of that has a sustainability factor to that. So, the system has to be 100% carbon neutral. It's got to be 100% electric. The design of the systems, the use of composite materials, the use of hemp in the manufacturing of concrete, for instance, carries with it such significant value. I don't think it's really been tapped into yet. So that's the exciting bit about, what we're doing, because we've got the opportunity to explore. We've got the opportunity to innovate, and we've got the opportunity to develop this new technology.
Yeah, maybe I can add some points from my perspective, like the new materials we use in building and manufacturing rolling stock really makes also a difference in sustainability. Like the new night trains will have bogies which are 40% lighter than the lightest bogies we currently have in the railway business. So I think there are so many aspects to sustainability. It's digitalization, as we already heard, and we work now on an app where really our customers are guided to the most empty carriage. And it tells you where to position yourself on the platform in order to have the coach with the least passengers on it. And this all contributes, as we were already hearing, to safety. And I mean, we can only be sustainable if people travel with us. So we need to make them comfortable and safe traveling with us. And there was not much argument before the pandemic, but now we can see that people are resistant to use public transport. We can clearly see that in our figures. The car transport is growing and recovering much faster than the public services. And our target is now using digitalization and other means to bring back the comfort and the ease of traveling in public transport. I think that's on the short run we have to achieve as an industry.
Thanks, Kurt. I think today was so far a very enlightening presentation and session, because we have the immediate challenge of returning to a system where people feel confident traveling, and then we have the long-term challenge where confidence blends with a different type of confidence, which is trust that you're traveling on an environmentally friendly and sustainable vehicle in the most least impactful source of energy, etc., etc. And the materials that some of you have commented on, and the maintenance and the life cycle impact, those really need to be the next step for railways to take on the rest of the transport industry, because we have always heard that railways are the greenest transport mode when you look at emissions per capita, but we haven't heard yet a strong commitment to carbon neutrality. Some of you have mentioned this today, and we haven't heard yet a strong commitment to reducing emissions at the construction and maintenance stage. So it's really pleasing to hear all of these coming up from the panel today. Maybe I will check what happened to the poll to see what our audience has answered. So let's see. The poll is now officially closed. Sorry, I didn't warn anyone, but hopefully everyone who wanted to vote has voted. And we have a clear winner. 56% of you said that the best example of the rail sector sustainability is that it is the least impactful mode on climate and air pollution. So if we need an indication of where people's, let's say, sentiment is towards sustainable components of railways, this is the clear winner. And in second place, 20% of you highlighted the role of safety and accessibility, and 12% highlighted the role of electrification and low resource consumption. Any comments from the panel on these results or the rest of the discussion we've had so far?
For me, it's again the combination, right? So it's nice to hear that there's a clear preferences, right? But there is no wrong and right. There is put it all to work, right? This is I think where we really need to go to. And for me, again, using the digitalization gives us a speed which we need also now to do, right? So when you think about how quick can you change things, in the past, it required building new platforms, it required building new trains. Now with digitalization, you can use what you have much smarter. You can guide more passengers. You can use apps. Apps can be loaded on smartphones, and apps can also be solving problems in a much faster way. So therefore, for me also, combining all what was in the poll and getting also the momentum on the speed, saying, okay, I need to start implementing now, and not like we have done so much in the railway afterwards that we made a year plan, and then we were working to get a tender, and then we were trying to get something, a project started, and then we certainly were in 5-year cycles or something like this. Using the power of digitalization, we need to shorten the cycles now to less than a year, and even also make sure that it's much more user-friendly. By this one, we really can get the impact immediately, and I believe we have it in our hands, really using now what is available at technology. And of course, looking forward to new technology in 10 years with Hyperloops and whatever, but to save the planet, I think we need to start now.
I totally agree, and it can't be more important. And there's two more bits there that are really important as well, and that's regulation and making sure that we don't stifle that innovation by having a regulatory environment that's overly demanding, overly prescriptive. That's really important for all of us, and also investment. It's the preparedness of government to invest, and also work with the private sector to invest. And without that support, by having a streamlined, regulatory environment in the sustainability circle, will enable, I think, growth in innovation, and also growth in the willingness for people to invest as well. That's very important.
Yeah, and I think it's the what will really make the big difference for modal shift is to solve that kind of last mile problem, isn't it? And that digitalization and the apps that Johannes was talking about so much is a huge opportunity to sort of help solve that problem, isn't it? And to not be we don't necessarily. It's more like cooperation and collaboration with other modes that I think we really need to think about now, rather than perhaps having arguments with automotive or aviation. We've got to. There's enough travel for everybody. We all. Travel is still, I think, going to be. Will still be important in people's lives going forward. I think behaviours will change, but it's still going to be there, and there'll be enough travel for us all to work together. And if we really want to have this modal shift to rail, which is absolutely critical, if we want that quick change and reverse in emissions from transport, then it's got to be this multimodal solve that problem. And so having these apps so that people can buy a ticket all the way through, so that they can book their electric vehicle sharing facility through to arrive at their station, or their e-bike or e-scooter, or perhaps just a walking route, so that they can find that really easy A to B, door-to-door kind of solution. And I think that will be one of the biggest game changers to get that big shift out of people taking the car all the way.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about marginal change and transformational change today, and both will need to take place. And I think you've highlighted challenges that relate to customers, so changing citizen and customer and passenger expectations. You've highlighted challenges that relate to what operators should do, and they go hand in hand with digitalization and with modernization, if we can use that term, of the industry. But then you've also highlighted challenges about coordination and cooperation. And Lucy, your point is exactly about that. I think it's encouraging that if you run through the new sustainable and smart mobility strategy of the European Commission, you read a few initiatives that really are multimodal, that really are intermodal, and that really cut through the sustainability and digital lens. across all modes, so ticketing, obviously, eco-labeling, ensuring smooth transition between modes, intermodality, combined transport. Now the challenge is for all of us to make it happen and to see how we can have a win-win situation. So of course the poll was a bit provocative in putting one sustainability objective against the other. And ideally we want to tick all of those boxes, and we want to have a rail sector that is, as all of you said today, resource efficient, energy efficient, emission close to zero as much as possible, and makes customers feel safe and arriving on time, as Bruce was saying, not just departing on time. Any other questions from the audience? I will have a look. Right now, no, I don't have any. So this is a good time for me to ask if you have any final comments. Looking around to see if anybody has burning desire for a closing statement. No. Well, I feel like we've wrapped up all of the discussion in a nice way through our Q&A and through our interaction. So despite being online, it's been a very fruitful and productive session. So I really wish that once this is over, we can meet again in person and interact. And travel by rail as much as possible. But until then, Lucy, over to you to lead the next session.
Okay, well, thank you, Lorenzo. It was really, really interesting, and thank you for leading us through that. And thank you, of course, to the panelists, my co-panelists, for a really interesting debate. And that's the last of the sustainable mobility sessions for the conference. We now will be going straight to the closing panel in just a couple of minutes, so you'll all be able to join the closing panel, and there'll be, I think, some more sort of roundtable discussions and conversations tomorrow. But this is the sort of, or the closing panel is the last of all of the conference sessions for the summit. So what a fantastic last 3 days. So it's been really, really interesting. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lorenzo. And we'll see you all in the closing session.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Stay
Bye,
safe.
everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.